Welcome! Today we're going to dive into a text that really grapples with one of the most profound human experiences, that search for meaning in a world that's just so beautiful, but also temporary. We're exploring the 17th Word, which is basically a guide to finding something permanent in the face of constant change. And, it all kicks off with one single, very challenging question.
So the text just throws us right into the deep end with this question from the Quran. It frames our entire experience here on Earth as something like a performance, a big show. And that one idea, it sets the stage for the central tension that we're about to unpack.
Okay, so if life is a performance, what kind of show are we talking about? Well, it paints this picture of the world not as some mundane, boring stage, but as a truly grand and glittering spectacle.
Just think about the imagery here for a second. The world isn't just some random place. It's described as a deliberately crafted divine festival. Everything, from the changing seasons to all the creatures in the world, it's all part of this magnificent celebration, designed for us to experience and just marvel at. And here's the catch. This beautiful, amazing festival is temporary. Every single participant gets their moment on the stage, but then their part ends. And this, of course, leads to separation, to loss, and ultimately, to death. This fleeting nature creates a really deep conflict inside of us. How can something so beautiful also be the source of so much pain?
And that conflict brings us right to the core philosophical problem the text is trying to solve. It's what the author calls the question of mercy. This is the big one. This is the question that's really at the heart of the text we're exploring. If our existence is a gift from an all-compassionate creator, how do we make sense of all the pain that seems to be woven right into the fabric of that existence? It just feels like a total paradox.
And this slide just illustrates the two sides of the coin perfectly. On one hand, we see the world as this incredible feast, a clear sign of the giver of life. But on the other hand, we are constantly, and I mean constantly, faced with the reality of the subduer, the dealer of death. They seem to be in complete opposition. Then the text introduces this incredibly profound statement, which was spoken by Abraham. It's presented as the natural cry of the human spirit. It's this declaration that our hearts, they're built for something permanent. We instinctively push back against loving things that are just destined to fade away. And that raises the huge question, how do we square that deep yearning for permanence with the fleeting reality that's all around us? Well, the text suggests there's a way.
So, the text doesn't just point out this massive problem and leave us hanging. No, it offers a path forward, a way to completely reframe our perspective through 5 key insights or steps that help us see the bigger picture.
Let's just walk through these 5 aspects real quick. First up, there's old age. It's our own personal reminder that all physical beauty fades, which naturally pushes us to look for a beloved that is permanent. Second is the loss of friends. When the people we love leave this world, it creates this deep longing, not just for them, but for the world they've gone to. Third, we have to confront our own human weakness. When you realize how fragile you are and how heavy life's burdens can be, it awakens this profound wish for a real eternal rest. And then all these realizations are lit up by the light of belief, which completely reframes death. It's not an execution, it's a transition, a release from a temporary prison. And all of this leads to Quranic wisdom, which is the understanding that getting deeply attached to a world that's just passing by is, in the end, kind of meaningless.
So what happens if we actually adopt this new perspective? What does the world become then? Well, the text uses a series of really powerful metaphors to describe its true nature, reframing it as a collection of signposts.
First, the world is a book, and the purpose of a book isn't the paper and ink, the physical stuff, but the meaning those things point to. We are here to understand the story, to get the main idea, not to get lost admiring the font on the page. Second, it's a collection of mirrors. Every beautiful thing we see isn't the source of the beauty itself, but a reflection of some ultimate single beauty. The whole point is to love the reality that's being reflected, not the fragile, breakable mirrors themselves.
And third, the world is a guest house. We're all just travelers passing through. The advice here is pretty simple. Enjoy the hospitality, be grateful to the host, but don't get so attached to your temporary room that you forget you're on a journey to your actual home.
So when you put them all together, these metaphors totally transform how we understand the world. It stops being this source of pain and attachment, and instead becomes a series of signs, a collection of guideposts, all pointing us in the exact same direction, towards the permanent and the eternal.
Now, to make this contrast absolutely crystal clear, the text finishes by presenting 2 tables, showing how the exact same reality can be experienced in 2 totally different ways.
I mean, look at the stark difference here. For the person who's just attached to the world, what the text calls the heedless, life is basically torment. The mind becomes a torture chamber, and every single pleasure eventually turns to pain because it's temporary. But for the guided, the one who sees the deeper meaning, life is a mirror of God, the mind is a key that unlocks treasures, and even separation is a kind of union.
So, what it really boils down to is this. One perspective sees only dead ends. It sees loss and finality everywhere it looks. But the other perspective sees every temporary thing not as an ending, but as a doorway to something permanent.
And that brings us right back full circle to our core idea. The text is arguing that our hearts, they know this intuitively. A beauty that's doomed to fade away can't be the ultimate thing we love, because our hearts were literally created for an eternal love.
So we're left with this one final thought to ponder. If every passing moment, every beautiful sight, and even every painful loss is actually a signpost, what is the destination? If this entire world is a book that's just filled with meaning, what is it asking us to read?